How we doing, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Notre Dame Daily, brought to you by Fan Arch. I'm Pete Mulroy, and I begin today with some more news from the portal as Irish wide receiver target Ian Strong is committed to the Cal Bears. And while Strong may not have been as highly sought as Nick Marsh, he was still a guy who would have fit nicely on the outside for Notre Dame while bringing another veteran presence to the position. What does this mean now? Well, Marcus Freeman still has former Iowa State target Xavier Townsend on campus this week, but it remains to be seen who else the Domers might be kicking the tires on. So you swing and miss on Marsh, who was a priority there. Strong, you thought, well, we can get him to campus and maybe we can get him to ink and commit here. Doesn't happen. Disastrous, no, but this does become a different level of frustration here. Outside of Townsend, BC's Reed Harris, who we've spoken about, 6'5", 220, maybe a solid fit, but minimal movement has been made there. You all know how I felt, by the way, about former NC State wide receiver Terrell Anderson, but he now heads to USC as Lincoln Riley continues to add talent via the portal. But as I said yesterday, no, it's not ideal to swing and miss on some of your targets in the portal, but it does happen. And again, it is not disastrous for the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. From a wide receiver perspective, again, they've done an exceptional job at bringing in talent via high school recruiting. For the 2026 campaign, I look at a kid like Kadon Finley, who might be able to step in right away and get some solid looks. The same could be said for Frazier and Robinson, especially with the recent departure of KK Smith. Elevated performances from Micah Gilbert, Cam Williams. I think we expect those things to happen. And with veterans in Faison and Greathouse returning, you like what you have there. But of course, added depth is needed. I think Townsend would be a solid fit in that regard because even though the Irish have a good combo up and down the position of speed, hand, size, guys that can do different things, reliable depth is always a need. And as I said earlier in the week, Townsend might not be the type of get that would jump off the page and wow you to death. But especially after missing out on Marsh and then to a lesser extent, even though he was a target in Strong, getting a reliable body who, maybe a change of scenery for Townsend, you might get some more of that production I think people thought you'd get from him when he was at ISU coming out of high school. So we'll see. Sometimes the change in scenery absolutely does have a positive impact. In addition to monitoring the receivers in the portal, Notre Dame's got a couple of significant visits taking place this week away from the position. First is 2025-26 All-America second-team defensive end John Henry Daly, who was a real force this past season for Utah. Across 11 games, Daly registered 48 tackles, 24 solo, 17 and a half TFLs, along with 11 and a half sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a pass defense. So he did it all, and easily worthy of being named to that second-team All-America. While he's coming off an Achilles injury, look, Daly is the type of player that any defensive line would love to have, especially with a coach like Charlie Partridge, who maximizes chaos and pressure in his scheme, coming aboard to coach the Notre Dame defense up front. Adding an All-American talent to a defensive line that already consists of Bryce Young, who can kick inside and play on the outside as well, Boubacar Traore, who's just a freak, Elijah Hughes, good talents in Cole Mullins and Logan Thomas, and coveted incoming freshmen in Tiki Ola, Rodney Dunham, and Ebenezer Iwatati. Adding someone of that ilk only makes you monstrously better. Daly, assuming he's ready to roll at full go, immediately elevates what is already a wildly talented Notre Dame defense. His potential signing would also, as we know and we've been talking about for the past couple days, a much-needed area of the defense, as both tackle and edge are in clear need of talented reinforcements. The 6'4", 260-pound Daly would be much more than a reinforcement. He'd be even more of a shining star in South Bend than he was in Kyle Whittingham's system at Utah. Whittingham, of course, now at Michigan, which is saying a whole lot. Now, the Irish just need to lock it up. So you knew you were going to have some misses, that the losses in the portal, I keep saying this because it is true, the losses would outweigh the gains from a personnel and from a body count. Missing out on Marsh and then again Strong, John Tez, the defensive back from Iowa State. Those sting. I don't think they're catastrophic. Okay, and even as I said yesterday, I think people invest too much in what they read about a given player and think it is some abject failure when your program or your team doesn't get that guy based on only what you heard. Nice players, very nice players. Nick Marsh, excellent. Ian Strong, excellent in that top 25 Rutgers offense. They elected to go elsewhere. Notre Dame's got eyes on some other guys. It'll be interesting to see what happens there on the outside, as it will on this defensive line. But getting a guy like Daly, get him to campus, get it done. That is a game-changing portal addition, at least from my seat in the aisle. Another visit this week comes back on the offensive side of the ball. Former Tulsa tight end Brody Foley coming to the Bend. Notre Dame likes what it has on the depth chart with existing talent in Cooper Flanagan, Jack Larson, and James Flanagan, along with incoming freshmen Preston Frizzell and Ian Premer, the latter, of course, who could make an impact right away in his first season in blue and gold. But adding a veteran body capable of coming in and producing immediately is never a bad idea. As such, the Irish have brought Foley to campus. Now, he's an Indiana transfer, stopped in Bloomington before going to Tulsa. Former four-star recruit, earned a starting role for the Golden Hurricane last season, reeled in 37 balls for 528 and 7 touchdowns. Also added 2 scores on the ground. And what really stands out for what the tight end position has become over the years, an average of over 14 yards per reception across 11 games for a Tulsa team who was a sub-500 group, narrowly missing out on a bowl game at 5-7. But he's a guy that you can utilize similarly to the way Notre Dame has used past tight ends most recently in Eli Raritan. And again, while this is not certainly Notre Dame's most pressing need, adding a veteran tight end is a great idea, especially one who can make that presence known immediately. Again, Raritan was a legitimate threat on third down and up the middle of the field. We all know that. A 6'6", 260-pounder like Foley, who's a target machine, would be a nice follow-up to Eli Raritan, who's going to play on Sundays next year. He'd also give some more time for the additional talent at the position to become acclimated to in-game action. You know, sure, you talk about a Jack Larson there. He's got some time on the field in various games last season, mostly when the issue had already been decided, right? Syracuse, Stanford games where Notre Dame won by multiple scores and blowouts. But for real development there, I think adding a veteran here who's proven, albeit on a lower level with a G5 team in Tulsa, would be and create a nice complement, a nice 1-2 punch at tight end for Notre Dame if Cooper Flanagan is able to get back to full strength. Notre Dame likes what they have in the room there, but it never hurts to add depth and veteran leadership and experience. The fit here, to me, absolutely makes sense, and I like it. I'm glad he's going to be on campus. And just wrapping today, quarterback is another area Marcus Freeman's exploring. Why not? It appears, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Some of you vehemently disagreed, and that's fine. But I thought the idea of adding a veteran QB to a young room behind C.J. Carr made a ton of sense. And it looks like Freeman's got his sights set on this season's best freshman on the FCS level, Mercer's Braden Atkinson. He lit up the former 1AA level this season, torched opponents, 3,600-plus yards passing, 34 scores, protected the football as well. Winner of the Jerry Rice Award for top FCS freshman. Atkinson's helped lead the Bears to a 9-3 mark and a berth in the FCS playoffs, which if you've been watching, that championship game the other night was outstanding. The tournament is fun. They get 24 teams in. I think we're looking in a couple of weeks, perhaps, at leaning toward the 12-team format, expanding perhaps to 16. 24 is on the table. I think 16 is more likely. But that FCS tournament is a lot of fun each and every year. Atkinson was a part of that this year, even though Mercer lost its opening round game. So in addition to the Irish here, from a competitive standpoint on the open market, he's got transfer interest from Boston College. That makes sense. Toledo, Syracuse, and Baylor, among others. And for Notre Dame, their own interest here makes loads of sense as well. We know C.J. Carr comes back for year 2, and that's uber exciting. But behind him, Blake Hebert, Noah Grubbs, and incoming freshman Teddy Gerard make up the rest of the QB depth chart. Having a guy coming off a monstrous first year in college who has shown an ability to put up numbers, protect the football, and lead an offense would be a valuable addition to a quarterback room that, while immensely talented, undeniably talented, is inexperienced behind C.J. Carr. I like the movement on this for Freeman, Coach Gino, and the Irish. and it's absolutely going to be interesting to see how the process unfolds. There's always going to be competition. Yes, it's a lower level, but we've seen how that transpires with past experiences there. Guys in the FCS level, the smaller schools have great pro careers, or they make the transition to the step up in college and perform incredibly well. It has happened before. I do think it's an interesting fit, but I think it's a positive one, and I do love the idea of going out there and saying, hey, maybe having a veteran back here, even though it's a kid with 1 year under his belt, that's more than Gerard. For a lot of guys that you have in that room already, young, talented, with Grubbs coming in. Hebert saw what it looked like, but again, having that experience for guys who have done it on the gridiron consistently is pretty powerful. And Notre Dame, don't forget, they don't have that with Kenny Minchie anymore, as he has moved on. So with that, a lot of moving parts. I know that this was a bing, bang, boom show. Portal is open until the 16th, so we got plenty of time there to continue to talk about it. I'll keep you abreast best I can. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow. And as always, go Irish.